Hey everyone, before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy these real-life stories. I promise it's worth your time. I never thought a simple vacation could turn my world upside down. My name is Daniel and I've always tried to be the kind of man who gives trust freely, believes in loyalty, and assumes that the people closest to me won't betray it. That assumption, I've learned the hard way, can be dangerous. It all started when my girlfriend of 3 years, Emily, mentioned she wanted a weekend trip with some friends. First, I didn't think much of it. Trips are normal, she said. A chance to relax. But as soon as she mentioned one of the friends she'd be traveling with, her ex, Mark, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I pushed the feeling aside, telling myself I was overreacting. People can remain friends after a breakup. I wanted to trust her. I really did. A few days before the trip, I asked Emily for the usual details, the hotel, the flight times, just in case of an emergency. She gave me a cold look, the kind that immediately tells you something is off. "Daniel, you don't need to know where we're staying," she said sharply. Her tone wasn't casual. It was distant, almost dismissive. "It's just a trip. Trust me." I didn't argue. I didn't push. I've learned that when someone draws a line, breaking it usually backfires. But internally I was uneasy. There was a shift in her demeanor I couldn't ignore. The laughter, the warmth, the small touches we shared over the past few months, they were gone. Replaced by a subtle distance. A space between us that seemed to grow every day. I tried to tell myself it was paranoia, that maybe I was reading too much into the situation. But every instinct I had, honed over years of observing people and patterns, screamed that this trip was different. Something wasn't right. And when you've seen betrayal up close, you start noticing the small signs. The way a smile lingers too long, the hesitation in a voice, the avoidance of certain topics. I decided to take a step back. I didn't call her, didn't nag, didn't bombard her with messages. But I needed to know the truth. That's when an idea came to me, something I hadn't expected I'd actually do. I sent a simple message to Mark's wife. Just a question, really nothing accusatory. And her reply, it left me speechless. The reply from Mark's wife came later that evening. I wasn't sure what I expected, anger, denial, maybe even confusion. But when I opened the message, I froze. It was calm, short, and to the point. "I know everything. Be careful how you handle this," it read. That's it. No explanation, no apology, just a subtle warning. My mind started racing. Emily had always been careful about hiding certain things. But now the pattern was undeniable. The distance, the secrecy, the little inconsistencies in her stories over the past few weeks, they weren't accidental. And suddenly, the trip wasn't just a weekend getaway. It was a stage and I was an unwitting audience. I tried to maintain my calm, to remind myself that acting rashly never helped. In our relationship, I had always been the steady one, the one who listened, who cared, who trusted. That same steadiness had kept us together through countless arguments and disagreements. But this was different. Now trust felt fragile, like a thin layer of ice over deep water. Step wrong and it would shatter completely. I kept myself busy, pretending nothing had changed. Work became my refuge. I didn't text Emily, didn't call, didn't hint at the storm brewing in my mind. But inside, every small notification made my heart race. Was it a message from her? A picture from the trip? A casual having fun post that hid 1,000 truths? I hated feeling powerless, but I also knew that losing control would play right into the situation she had set up. When the trip ended, Emily returned with her usual smile, the one that used to melt me from the inside. But the look in her eyes, hesitant, careful, told a different story. She expected me to react, to question, to confront. She didn't know that I had already seen the other side. The side she thought was hidden from me. I didn't say a word. Not a single question, not a single accusation. Instead, I simply watched, observing how she carried herself, noting every hesitation, every subtle change in her behavior. And as the hours passed, I realized something crucial. The power had shifted. What she thought was control, her little secret she had carried with confidence, was now exposed. And I was no longer just the man she had tried to deceive. I was the one who knew. That evening, I sat quietly in the living room, letting the tension build without saying a word. Emily tried to engage me, asking about my day, about work, about small mundane things. I responded politely, calmly, but my words were measured, neutral. Inside, my mind was running through every detail, every moment from the trip, every possible lie she had tried to layer over the truth. Eventually, she noticed the change. The playful teasing, the subtle flattery that usually worked so well, it had no effect. I could see it in her eyes. Confusion, anxiety, a hint of panic. The woman who had returned from that trip with confidence, believing she had navigated everything perfectly, was suddenly unsettled. She realized finally that the game was no longer hers to control. I didn't confront her directly. I didn't yell or beg. Instead, I allowed the silence to speak louder than words ever could. Each pause, each measured glance was a mirror reflecting her own actions back at her. And slowly, the mask she wore began to slip. The casual smiles faded. The light, confident demeanor dimmed. Later, when she tried to explain herself, I listened quietly, nodding only occasionally. No accusations, no anger, no drama. I had learned that sometimes the quietest reactions carry the heaviest weight. The truth had been revealed, not through shouting or confrontation, but through observation, patience, and restraint. By the next morning, Emily understood something crucial. She could no longer hide behind lies or manipulation. Her attempt to control the narrative had failed. And though we still had conversations to have, decisions to make, and emotions to process, the balance had shifted. The trust that she had tried to break was now no longer unilateral. She had lost her edge, and for the first time in weeks, she saw me not just as the man she had taken for granted, but as someone who could see through deception, someone who would not be easily swayed or controlled. Sometimes I think back to that trip, to the message from Mark's wife, and to the silent hours I spent observing Emily. It was a lesson in patience, in control, and in understanding that power in a relationship is not about dominance or anger. It's about awareness and self-respect. And from that day on, I knew that my own boundaries would never be crossed again.